Ahoy lads, Sam here. It has been a while since any video, but especially since I have done a sort of Souls PvP community commentary, especially by myself. Usually I end up doing that with somebody else and throw it into the Homing Soulcast playlist, but in this case I want to make a video on my own. Definitely inspired by the videos I see put out by Prun or Rofo, good friends of mine, great content creators who do this style of video that I think I am about to put forth here. I was watching some videos related to Marathon, an up-and-coming extraction PvE VP shooter by Bungie. And one of the things that came up in one of the videos was about how Bungie has underserved their PvP audience for years. And I would have to very much agree with that as somebody who initially got into Destiny, coming off of the Halo games, right? Excited to see what PvP options there were. Of course, I was interested in PvE as well, but that really was underserved for a long time. And I got to thinking to myself, gee, why does this seem so familiar? A developer underserving their PvP audience. And of course, it relates to Fromsoftware and the Souls games. I was thinking, you know, Duskbloods, right? That's eventually going to come out. And that's an extraction shooter, PvE, VP. And although I don't think Fromsoftware is in the same perilous situation as I would look at Bungie after they've had repeated failures like Concord, perhaps being the greatest video game failure in a long time. It beckons the question though, like, are the PvP players for Fromsoftware still going to be around? Like, how small is our community? How small to think that there's enough of us to at least serve, you know, the purposes of me being able to continue playing the game, but in terms of like, you know, selling a game, maintaining an audience, being successful, like, clearly there is an audience there, but you know, what has happened to us, right? And I want to talk about some of the choices that have been made with Souls games that I feel hurt our base, that underserve our base, right? The PvP players. One of the big ones, perhaps the biggest one, with Elden Ring, right? The mainline game for, or I guess you should say, the next main Souls game, right? After Dark Souls 3. We lost solo host invasions. There was the elimination of solo host invasions. And I talked about it back then, that it would have ripple effects, that this would ultimately make less people engage with PvP, therefore less people become PvP players. Most of us, not all of us, but I would gather the vast majority of people who become invaders, right, or PvP players, are introduced via an invasion. Most people play the Souls game solo their first time. Not everybody, maybe as the games have gotten wider, that might not be true anymore, but that was true for a long period of time. And we would be introduced to the PvP aspect via an invasion. And sometimes it kind of grows on you, or at least it did with us, right? And not being able to experience an invasion, not being exposed to that earlier, not experiencing that regularly, will mean that less people get involved. It has a huge effect on our community, and I think that that was a very bad decision for our audience. Another one of those examples, which I find a lot of people disagree with me on this, but it is my opinion. You have a capitulation of the organic co-op system. And that similarly has an effect, I feel. You know, back in Dark Souls 1, for example, when you summoned somebody, right, there was no password, and you had to be within a specific level range. Over time, that would change all the way up to, I think it was Bloodborne that introduced the password matchmaking system, and I feel like that was a really bad capitulation, as they hurt the organic co-op experience. I feel the kind of organic invasion experience is tied in there somewhat, isn't it? The elimination there of the the capitulation towards a password matchmaking system definitely hurt organic co-op, and that audience has dwindled, if they still exist. Very few, right? Very few organic co-op players exist. They're not completely gone, but we can argue they have been underserved with the password matchmaking system, and I feel like us invaders, the PvP players, are experiencing similar things. We hear a lot of people say, right, PvP is an afterthought. Whether or not that is true, the general perception of it is not helping. It's not helping retain players, especially. Like it or not, too, some people think very much in terms of content, and measuring that in numbers is easy. Right? How many PvP game modes and arenas do we have? How many covenants? How many things in the games serve PvP players? We don't have a lot. We utilize a lot of what we are given, so long as it is not awful. Or even if it is awful, so long as it is not so awful that we can't use it, we do use it. But there isn't that much content. There really isn't. The reason I'm getting all that, coming back to Duskbloods, the whole reason I'm going over this, is Duskbloods might find that the underserved PvP audience isn't there. Or maybe Duskbloods doesn't try to cater as much to PvP as I think it's going to. And I wonder what happens after that. I'm not saying the game is going to completely fail, but it may have issues with an audience. Similarly, there haven't been a lot of Souls games released on Nintendo platforms, which also leads to possible audience finding issues. We'll have to see what the effects are. Even past Duskbloods, though, I wonder what is the next, like, quote-unquote main Souls game, right? Like Elden Ring. What is that going to feel like? Is Duskbloods supposed to be the next main sort of Souls game or not? I don't know. But if it's not, what does the next one look like for PvP? Will we be underserved again? Probably. And even if they don't, what of us are left, Do they, is it even worth for them to try to serve us? I'm not sure. I'd be very curious as to what people's thoughts are. I imagine they'll be somewhat different than mine. But this was a general thought coming up related to Marathon and Bungie. I certainly could talk about that as well, but I wanted to keep this Souls related. I hope you guys are still out there. I'm still doing my DS3 stuff. I'll see you around. Have a good one, lads.